Hey guys, make sure you're staying organized. This is chapter 7, section 1. We're going to focus on ratios and proportions. File is under unit 5, proportions and similarity. Okay, so we're going to focus on ratios, extended ratios, and proportions in this set of notes. So let's go ahead and start off by defining what is a ratio. A ratio is going to be a comparison between two things. And so when we're looking at this comparison, we're talking about its value or its amount. And so we represent this ratio as a fraction, a colon, using a colon, or even we just say it as a statement. So here you can see fraction. Let's say we're talking about the apples to bananas, so A to B. A, this colon, we would still read as 2, and then of course just the words A to B. When you're talking about ratios, especially when you're using the fractions, always reduce them. Always reduce. Don't ever forget that. So if I have 15 apples to 3 bananas, then I could reduce this because 15 is divisible by 3, and 3 is also divisible by 3. So this would give me a 5-to-1 ratio. I have 5 apples to 1 banana. All right, so let's practice writing some ratios. It says a video game has 60 games to choose from, including 40 sports games. What is the ratio of sports games to video games? So here we're looking at the ratio of sports games to video games. So we're going to go with 40 sports games. So I'm going to write that first. 40 to 60. 40 sports games to 60 video games. Now this can be reduced because they both end in the 0, so I know they're divisible by 10. Actually, they're going to be divisible by 20, right? And if you're not sure, you can always just type it in the calculator and have the calculator reduce for you. So here I'm looking at 2 to 3, because 40 divided by 20 is 2, and 60 divided by 20 is 3. So my statement is 2 to 3, 2 sports games to every 3 video games. As a colon, it'll be 2 to 3, colon we still read as 2, and then we have our fraction 2 to 3 as well. All right, go ahead and press pause. See if you can do the next one here on your own. Press pause. Okay, so for this one, you should have 2 to 4. She has 2 elective classes to 4 non-elective. So she has a schedule including 6 classes. Those 6 classes are including her 2 elective. So we subtract the 2 from the 6, which is where my 4 comes from. So she has her 2 elective classes and then her 4 core classes. Again, this can be reduced, which is where my 1 to 2 comes from. All right, go ahead and write your colon and fraction. Go ahead and press pause again. Right, go ahead and check yourself. Good job. So now we're going to talk about extended ratios. An extended ratio is going to be now a comparison between of more than 2 quantities. And we're going to write these extended ratios with the colon. So we're going to have it A to B to C. And we're going to use these, of course, with our triangles, right? Can't forget about our triangles. We love our triangles. Okay? So here it says, write the angles of the triangles as reduced extended ratios. So here we have the angle measurements of triangle ABC. We have 30, 100, and 45. Now we're going to reduce this because we always want to have these values reduced. So we got to see 35, 100, and 45. These are all divisible by 5. So this is going to leave us with 7, 20, and 9. All right, let's go ahead and try this next one. So same thing, we have our 3 angle measurements. We have 60, 40, and 80. Now, these look like they're all divisible by 20. So give it a shot. All right, we're looking at 3, 2, and 4 as our extended ratio. Okay, let's go and take a look at the next page here. We're going to find the measurements. So it says here the ratios of the measures of 3 angles of a triangle are 4, 6, 8. And I know you're thinking, Miss, those are not reduced. And you're correct. They are not. But that's okay. Let's go ahead and work and just see how to evaluate here. It says find the measure of each angle of the triangle. And so here, since we're talking about angles, that's really important because that's telling us, hey, we're looking at degrees, which is 180. So when we set up our equation, we're actually going to be using this ratio, but because they're all divisible by a common number, we're going to set it up as 4x plus 6x plus 8x, because they're all divided by the same number, so we're going to multiply them all back by the same number and set it equal to 180. So we go ahead and solve by adding up our terms here. So we have 4x plus 6x is 10x, plus another 8x gives us an 18x, and that's still equal to 180. We divide both sides by 18, and that leaves us with our x has a value of 10. So now we're going to go ahead and evaluate for each angle measurement. So I'm going to start off here with my 4x. So this is going to be 4 times the x value of 10, which gives us 40, followed by our 6x. So this is going to be 6 times the x value of 10, which is 60. And then last we have our 8x, which is going to be 8 times our x value of 10, which gives us 80. So these are our degrees, 40 degrees, 60 degrees, and 80 degrees. So in the next one, it has the ratio of the measures of 3 sides of a triangle is 2, 5, 4. And its perimeter is 165 units. Find the measure of each side of the triangle. So for this one, we're not talking about the angles, and so we're not as restricted, but that also means we need more information. And so when it tells us the perimeter here is 165 units, that's really helpful because that tells us that we're going to add to get that 165. That's going to be what our total sum will be. And so when we go to set up our equation, same thing, because it's a ratio. The 2, the 5, and the 4 have each been divided by the same number. So I'm going to use that number to be represented by x. So I have my 2x plus my 5x plus my 4x, and that's all going to come out to 165. So this is my equation. Again, they each have that x because that's the number that the ratio has reduced to. So reduced, which means it's all been divided by that same value. And so when we add our 5 and 2 together, is 7, and 7 plus our 4x is going to go ahead and come out to 11x. So we're looking at 11x is equal to 165. And same thing, we want to divide both sides by 11, and that leaves us with an x value of 15. And so now we can go ahead and evaluate for those missing side measures. And so same thing like what we did in the previous problem. I'm going to take my 2x, and this time instead of multiplying by x, I'm going to do the x value of 15 to get my 30. My 5x, so this will be 5 times 15, and 5 times 15 comes out to a 75. And then we have our 4x. 4 times 15 will come out to 60. And when we add all these up, we do get that 165 value. So a lot of you are used to talking about ratios. You're used to using these proportions. And so you know these proportions is an equation, basically, where you set two ratios equal to each other. So when we set these ratios up, this is where we typically use our fractions. And so we have our A over B set equal to C over D. Now remember, whatever's in the bottom can never be equal to 0. When you have this, that we can solve by using what's called the cross product property. And the cross product property basically tells us you're going to take the multiple. So I'm going to do A times D. And so my AD is going to be equal to my B times C. And then from there, we can solve for whatever variable we need. Because usually when you have this, we have three numbers in one letter, one variable that we're solving for. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply this cross product property. So here I have my 4 times 7. So we're going to set it equal to our 2 times x, or 2x. Now we go ahead and we know that 4 times 7 is a 28, and that is equal to 2x. So we divide both sides by 2, and we get our x has a value of 14. All right, we're going to do the same thing on the next one here. Numbers look a little different. That's okay. It's the same process. So here we're going to do the 18 multiplied by the x minus 20. And so we want to be really careful with that because it is 18. So this is going to be 18. So because I want to make sure I multiply by all of that x minus 20, I make sure that I use parentheses. And then I'm going to do the same thing here with the 3 times all of that x minus 11. So I'm going to use those parentheses to remind me that it's 3 times everything inside. All right, and so for here we go ahead and distribute. So this gives us an 18x, and then 18 times negative 20 is a negative 360. And then it's going to be equal to 3 times x is a 3x, and 3 times negative 11 gives us a negative 33. From here, we're going to go ahead and subtract 3x from both sides so we can get our x's all on the left. So that leaves me with 15x minus 360 is equal to negative 33. Don't forget that negative. I'm going to add my 360 to both sides, and that leaves me with 15x is equal to 327. Now in our final step, we divide both sides by 15. This is not going to divide evenly, and that's okay. We're going to leave our answer as that fraction. So I have x is, because fraction is one of those ways to write the ratio, and so this would be 109 to 5. So we set up ratios, and we use the cross product property to solve so that way we can make some predictions. And so that's what we're doing here with Jimmy. Jimmy conducted a survey of 50 students that drove to school, found that 28 owned cars. If 755 students drive to school, predict the total number of students who own cars. And so this is like a sample, and if you guys are interested in statistics, you'll do a lot more of this. And so the first thing we want to do is how are we setting up our proportion? So it says if that 755 students drive to school, predict the total number of students who own cars. And so again, he didn't survey the entire campus, just a portion of them. And so we are looking at, okay, so now let's go ahead and set up our proportion. So we're going to focus on driving. 50 students are driving. So I'm going to have my 50 students. Of those that he surveyed, and of those that he surveyed, 28 owned the car. Now, I'm going to set this equal to the entire campus. And so again, focusing on those who are driving in the entire campus. And so that's 755. So that 755 will go in the numerator of my second ratio here. And then of those, how many own the car? And that's what we don't know. That's what we're trying to predict. But we do know of those that he surveyed, 28. So here, that's my unknown. That's what I'm going to go ahead and use my variable. From here, we're going to go ahead and do the cross product. So we'll cross 50 times x will be 50x. And then we do that 28 times 755. And we get 21,140. We divide both sides to solve for x, and we get x has a value of 422.8. Since we are talking about people, we're going to go ahead and round this for our prediction, and we're going to say about 423 own a car. Students own a car. So I want you guys to try this one. June randomly surveyed 30 students from her class and found that 18 had a dog or cat for a pet. There are 870 students in June's school. Predict the total number of students with a cat or dog. So we're we're talking about the number of students versus how many of those students own a pet. So that's how your ratio is going to be set up. Okay, so let's talk about how many students did she survey? Okay, 30. So that's going to be our first ratio. Of those 30 students, how many owned a pet? Good, so that's going to be our 18. Now we're going to go ahead and say, okay, in the whole campus, how many students are there in the whole campus? Good, so we're looking at 870, and of that 870, how many own a pet? That's what we're going to predict. So we're going to go ahead and let X represent. So now we can go ahead and do our prediction by using that cross product property. So here we're going to do that 30 times X, which will give us the 30X. And then we're also going to do the 18 times 870. It's going to be a big number. That's okay. We can work with these larger numbers. And we get 15,660. And then we go ahead and divide each side. And this one comes out to a nice whole number of 522. And so we can go ahead and say about 522 students own a cat or dog. And we always want to use about because these are predictions. All right, I hope you guys had fun with this.